Hi, welcome to this edition with Opening Doors with Annette Compo. Today, I'm super excited, as I always am, to have the next guest, Hannah Brown. Yay. Welcome.
Hello. Thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here today.
I've been so excited to have you. I can't even, I'm speaking over you because of my excitement. So, Hannah, we actually met most recently, in the last couple years, and to, have you on the podcast to kind of talk about where you started from and where you're at today. I get kind of emotional because I know you have, we call this, what do we call it? A chamber brotherly relationship
100%.
With one of my children, yes. Who's now, well, he's my adult child. And so my heart just goes pitter patter knowing that and seeing you grow into such a leader in our community. So thank you for being here, Hannah.
Yes, thank you.
So tell us a little bit about your business.
Yes. So my business is called Simple Living by Hannah, LLC, and I specialize in commercial, residential, organization, decor, design, and more. And what I mean by more is real estate services, so packing, unpacking, home staging, sometimes furniture assembly, event decorating, office transformations, room makeovers, the list goes on and on. I like to be that person that if someone, has a project in their house that they're looking to tackle, I like to be that person that, at least someone can ask and see if I can do it.
You're the person that I want to call when I have a great idea, but I'm not confident enough to do the idea.
There you go.
Right? Or the furniture that looks amazing put together, but then all of a sudden it shows up on my front door in a box. And you're like, I thought it looked different when I was thinking about doing this. The concept was completely not what I thought it was.
For sure.
So you're kind of that person that, you have the interior design background, right? The flair for the things I don't like, color and tapestries and how, something looks with something if you're trying to minimalize. But then you're also the feet on the streets, the manual labor to help people kind of get through that. Do you notice that your clientele is like a certain age group, or is it kind of across the board?
Yeah, that's a great question. It definitely has ranged. I mean, I've worked with people who are my friends and they're my age, up until people who are, in their late 80s, early 90s. Because one of the beauties of my business is I'm working with anyone in any period of life, whether you're, moving into college and you just want to get, your dorm ready, or, you're moving into your first apartment. It's exciting. That's a huge life-changing transition.
I remember that moment. Day.
Yes. And it's so exciting. And you're just like, I don't know what to do with this. I just need a foundation down. So I get calls all the time. People moving, they're downsizing, they're retiring. They just became an empty nester. Their kids are, off doing their own thing. So I get calls every day surrounding just different life transitions, different life changes. So the age definitely varies. Like I said, from my age, so mid 20s up until, late 80s I've worked with. So
nice.
It definitely is across the board.
When you were saying all those different things, just kind of putting like a scenario with somebody who's in that. So for instance, a college student, right? Designing out what that space looks like is so important because our environment affects our mindset.
100%.
Right? So we want our kids that are going to college to have that open creativity environment. And that sometimes you need to bring a professional in for.
Absolutely.
Right. And then you take them to their first place, right? They buy, 1,000 square foot house and they've been living in 300 square feet, right? If they're coming from mom and dad's basement or they're coming from a dorm room, how do they transition? So you're helping them, you're meeting them where they're at and where they're at, and then we're walking them to that next transition in their life. I know for me, I've gone from being in a 3,000 square foot house to being in a 1,200 square foot house to being into another size square. And so people transition differently. And it's our special space, right? It's where we create memories. It controls how we live, the quality of life that we have.
Our mood, everything.
Everything. And of course, coming up, we were just talking about this before we went live, but we were talking about January. Everybody uses January as being kind of that new beginning. I'm going to
refresh.
The refresh. Tell us a little bit about what your services can support people that are going through that type of a mindset.
For sure. And it's exactly what I support. And actually, to hit on what you were just talking about, there is such a a positive factor surrounding the space that you live in and that you're in constantly, daily, really, whether you're working in it, you're building a life in it with family, things like that. There is just a lot of positive factors that can surround living simplified, living organized, knowing where, specific things go and don't go. But specifically when it comes to a refresh, bringing in the new year, supporting your mindset around that. Yes, it's great to go into that refresh, wanting to feel organized, minimalized, simplified. It's all good things, but it is something that you do have to keep up with. It's not just something that you can do on a whim and have an impulse.
Shucks.
Exactly. Oh, I want to redo all my kitchen cabinets, today or this week, and then all of a sudden by next week you're putting the spatula in the crock pot drawer, whatever the case may be. It's something that you keep up with. So like I tell my clients and anyone that I'm working with, I say this is a journey and it's something that you need to be ready for. If we start this and I set the foundation for this and I buy you bins, baskets, totes, that's your investment and you want to stick with that investment. So let's stick with it. And that's why I offer 3-month follow-ups, because 3 months is typically the time that we do tend to fall off, I think, a little bit. So I can come back, I can call it fluffing. So I can fluff things up and see what isn't working, isn't working, and make any modifications if need be.
And it's fun, Hannah, that you would say that because, being a coach in multiple scenarios in real estate and different businesses, we talk about accountability,
For sure.
right? And accountability is healthy, especially if you're reaching for what we consider an uncomfortable zone. Because when we grow as individuals, we get very uncomfortable because it doesn't feel like it should because you're growing,
Yeah.
And so it's sometimes the fear kind of sets in, right? I notice that a lot when people downsize in regards to the items that they've collected over the years and their inability to get rid of them because they absolutely feel at some point they're going to need it. And to walk them through is that what is that need? And sometimes I'm sure when you're talking with somebody that 3 month, it may just be having the initial conversation and giving them 3 months to actually embrace it.
Do something about it.
Yeah. So I love the fact that you have coaching as part of your business.
Absolutely.
Because we all need that. We need that coaching, that guidance, and then of course the healthy accountability that allows us to say, hey, I'm doing this with you, but we do still have to take that step forward. So Hannah, you're in the first part of your business, which I absolutely, it's a gift to spend time with you because I relive when I was first in the business. And of course, this may be a little premature, but I don't think it is because I've seen you grow over the last couple of years into this incredible person, even your great version in the beginning, but even better now. And so if you looked back on your younger self, what would you tell that person that you would do differently to get to where you are today?
Take a little pressure off.
Oh.
I was always, and I mean, it's kind of funny to see where I'm at now, but I was always OCD and organized. And I mean, imagine that, right?
Imagine that.
And I mean, that's part of the reason why I have what I have today in this business. But just take a little bit of the pressure off. I always say, I'm a very religious person. I always say, let go and let God. And at the end of the day, that just, when you say that and you take a deep breath, it really just releases a lot of weight off your chest. And at least for me. And so I think that I was always just so caught up in, doing all the things and making all the good grades and, comparing myself. I think when you're at a younger age, you fall victim to that. It's very easy to do that. You're just,
well, there's so much stimulation.
There's so much.
Right.
Yes.
And
100%.
of course, we as humans were wired to say, oh, I like that. And that person's doing it. So if they're doing it, it's got to be easy for me to
100%.
do it. And maybe that isn't what's good for you.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
And so we almost build ourselves these expectations that really, well, one, they're not healthy. Yeah. Two, it's not the direction, the journey that you set out yourself for. Right.
For sure.
And when you're starting off in that new business, there's a lot of things that are, you're learning so much. You're so uncomfortable, right? And I think a lot of the younger entrepreneurs that I've worked with have always said that, talking to people about what we do is probably the hardest thing to overcome.
Absolutely.
And I always tell them, seek why you decided to do this. There was something that went off that said, I like to do this. Because when you do things that you're passionate about, you're going to have success.
You do well.
You're going to do well. So how did you get your mind wrapped around actually doing this? Because I look at your sweatshirt and I want them to grab the caption on the sweatshirt. It says, minding my own small business.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
So tell me where that spirit is.
Yeah. Well, first of all, it is important to just, number one, mind your own business, and number two, just mind your business, especially when it comes to your own business, speaking literal terms, and just stay in your own lane and just have that focus. But how I got to where I'm at. So again, I was always a very organized OCD girl to teen to now young adult. Growing up, and I went to school. I went to Oakland University to get my business degree, graduated early, traveled for a little bit. And then I had this business. I started it when I was in college, but I just said, maybe it's just not going to be enough for me long term. I want to save up. I want to have a family one day. That's always been very important to me. So I just said, you know what? I'm going to join corporate America. So I started applying.
Excuse me for one moment. I feel a little restricted.
Right?
Is that not? I mean, I love
Very
corporate
accurate.
America, and it's good for a great place. Trust me, I've done my corporate year and a half.
For sure.
Very limited. It comes from the old joke, I can't say job.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, oh my, I say it, I'm like, ugh.
Yeah.
I'm like shortness of breath. So yes,
100%.
So from there, how did that propel you?
Well, 6 months I was sitting at a desk, looking at a computer. Granted, it's for some people that's great. All the more power to you. It's not for a creative mind like myself. So the same week that I decided that it wasn't for me was the same week that I got my LLC and I went fully legal. That was in 2023. So now here we are, 2 years later, fully legal, I guess you could say, but been in the business, the industry since 2021. So yeah, it's just been a roller coaster, lots of different turn of events and things like that. But again, I give it all to God and give him the path that He's given me for a reason. Love that. But yeah, so I think it just comes from having that business background, growing up being organized and like I keep saying, OCD. And I think there is a lot of positivity surrounding that. I don't mean to just throw that word around. I think that there is a lot of good to that. It is a struggle, but there is also success behind that, as I see day in and day out. So,
and you're right. When we say OCD, when you have it, people like me who don't have it are almost envious, but you don't realize that my perspective is that I honor that. Like I would love to have that type of a lifestyle, and I have to strive to be more like you. For sure. But that goes back to that whole pressure thing, right?
It absolutely does.
We just know and embrace each other and the glory that each one of us bring to the 100%. Environment, and know that if that's something we choose to work on in our life, to get around people that have that, right? Because and honor those people, because that's how you're going to impact your life the fastest.
Absolutely.
So Hannah, let me ask, if I wanted to kind of get a consultation with you, what is that next step that we can tell our listeners?
Yeah, so it all starts with a conversation, like I always say. So that would be a consultation, which is no charge to anyone, virtual or in person. It depends kind of where you're at in terms of location. But I just want to, see the space, talk about your goals, talk about, if you're wanting, like I said earlier, bins, baskets, totes, bins, if you're wanting to go as far as labeling everything. It just depends on what your overall vision is. And again, that's just with organization. If we're going decor and design, there's different routes with that. But since organization is my bread and butter, that's what I like to hit on. But yeah, it starts with a conversation, and then from there is when the project comes about. The project can range from days to weeks. And then, like I also mentioned earlier, the 3-month follow-up, which I always like to come back and just see how my clients are doing with their new spaces, and just talk through things that are and aren't working.
Love that. Now, of course, at the end of the show, I always say I've used your services with my clients. Huge reviews. So thank you so much for not only taking care of my clients and my business, but impacting them at such a deep level.
Absolutely.
So until next time I see you, thanks again, Hannah, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you.